This is actually an initiative from two NGOs from Kerala. It's called Kottayam Nature Society and Alappuzha Naturalistic Society. So past 48 days, we've been doing webinars every day. So it's like tomorrow. One second. Okay.
What is that?
No, I think your sound was okay. Yeah, so I was saying we did this almost 48 days. Now today, today is the 48th day of webinar. So we covered a lot of different topics, ranging from tigers, elephants, then plants like rocky outcrops. We've done desert outcrops. Then we done on frogs. We done on dragonflies. We done on butterflies, butterfly identifications. Then on skinks, reptiles, different topics. We covered past 48 different topics. So today we have Lester Perera. I mean, I know him around 15 years back. It's one of the he's one of the finest birders in from Sri Lanka. And tomorrow we have one more interesting topic, that is the gaur relocation. It's interesting, in India that's the first time they relocated the entire population of gaurs from Kana Tiger Reserve to Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve. They captured and relocated this. So that was one of the amazing thing they done first time in history. Yes. And day after tomorrow, on 2nd June, we'll have Romulus Whittaker will be talking about the king cobras of India. He'll talk about different habitat all over India, all those things. And yeah, so today we are lucky to have Lester. I mean, he can give a small introduction to himself also. And thank you so much. He's an amazing birder. He's been doing this for so many years. I don't know. I mean, he's one of the finest birders he can meet in the Indian subcontinent, I would say, in Sri Lanka. So over to you, Lester. You can unmute yourself and give a small brief also about you and take over the session. Thank you so much.
Unmute it, okay?
Yeah. Okay, over to you.
Well, I must thank Kottayam Nature Society and Alappuzha Nature Society for the invite, especially to David, who's been a friend for many, many years. And it's a great privilege to talk to Indians and all birders worldwide, whoever is on this show. And in fact, to be very honest, I've been birding in India for the last over 20 years, and there are many places I'm very happy. I've been very happy birding over there. Covered from the south to up to Ladakh as well. It's just that I've not been able to do the northeast bit. Well, apart from a birder, I'm overall naturalist, I would say, but I've been specializing in birds for a long time. And apart from being a birder, I would consider myself a fanatic as well. Also, I'm a bird artist. I've been exhibiting over 20 since 1990. I've been exhibiting my work. So this is one of my paintings of the Serendip Scopsowl, probably the most photographed owl in the world, I would say. It was thought to be, I mean, it was discovered in 2001 by Deepal Varakagoda, and this was the species discovered after 132 years. I think the previous one was the whistling thrush. So it's probably the most interesting find in the history of Sri Lankan ornithology. So this was one of my paintings which I did last year for my exhibition, which I had in December last year. So I'll move on to the next slide, and give me a moment. Okay. Yeah, so Sri Lanka is 432 kilometers in length and 224 kilometers in width, with 65,000 square kilometers. Well, the climatic zones are pretty interesting. We got which is created due to, of course, the northeast and the southwest monsoons. And we have in the northwest and the southeast, we got the south of southeast, we got the arid zones. And then we have the dry zone, which gets most of the rainfall during the northeast monsoon. And then we have also the southeast monsoon, which gives us just the major rainfall happens during the southwest monsoon, just like in Kerala. So most of the endemicity, endemic fauna is found in the wet zone, and most of the birds which are endemic are found in the central hills and the wet zone in the lower hills. So I'm just going to highlight you some of the major areas where one would be birding in. When it comes to the endemics, Singaraja probably is the key area, and that's where we would see most of the endemics. But those endemics are also found in other wet zone areas as well. Then there's a set of endemics which are found in the central hills. You can see in Horton Plains National Park, almost in the center. And then we have Yala National Park in the southeast. And we have towards the east, we have Galway National Park, which also harbors about 4 or 5 species, mainly the yellow-legged green pigeon, the jungle bush quail, and the painted francolin. All 3 species subspecies are endemic to the country. So I'll go into that bit of the statistical bit of it. And up to now, there was 400 and plus and then we have migrant 238 species of breeding species, migrants 216, and the vagrants will keep on increasing. You know, breeding species will also increase. In fact, very recently, after many years, over a century, we discovered ornithologists have discovered the breeding of the glossy ibis. So the numbers may increase in the future. Migrants may increase, and some of the vagrants may eventually be regular. The vagrants may become regular. It's very interesting because probably these vagrancies and vagrancies probably has been happening for a long time and not been recorded. But the fact remains that within the last 10-15 years, there's a whole massive inclination of people towards birding worldwide. So that's a good thing for conservation, from a conservation perspective. We got 60 plus endemics, endemic subspecies, and if I go to elaborate on the endemic species, there is 33, but there are 2 species which has been coming into the list and getting lumped later. This has been happening for a while, so probably in the coming future we will see 2 more coming in, and that I will elaborate later on, especially with the lumping of the Sri Lanka thrush, the thrush complex. It's pretty phenomenal, the work being done now, and I will come to that. So the Nilgiri thrush and the Sri Lanka thrush and all these thrushes along this cline has been lumped as white thrush. So the endemic subspecies, you know, it yo-yos, and I think it might the numbers may fall eventually, and some of the subspecies may become endemic species, may be elevated eventually, which is very interesting with the molecular biological, the DNA work being done now. So that is an interesting aspect, and it's good for the country to have more endemics, and from many aspects. So in Sri Lanka, we also have endemic subspecies to South Asia, 44 plus, you know, and these subspecies, you know, these species will remain, but obviously it will increase, or even, you know, with different taxonomies, it's hard to say what would happen. Just give me a moment. Okay. Okay, this is a Sri Lanka jungle fowl. It's the national bird of Sri Lanka, and it's a very common species. It's found throughout the island, even in the arid areas, arid zones. Very interesting, and something which I've observed over the years, because I have another interest which I'm fanatical about, which is basically chickens. And you know what I found is that we have in the wet zone the combs are much smaller, proportionately smaller than the ones in the dry zone. Now this is a picture of the dry zone species. They when they're full adults have a much larger comb, which is very interesting. Well, this is another interesting bird, which is a Sri Lanka spurfowl. This is a male, and this female is more darker, quite dark in color. Very, very interesting. Very difficult bird to find. Probably a tour leader's nightmare bird. You know, can miss it. But since of late, there are a couple of feeding stations. You know, I wouldn't say feeding stations, but you know, homes around in Singaraja where they have feed the birds and they get a kickback out of it when tourists do come. This is the Sri Lanka green pigeon. Got the grey-fronted green pigeon in Kerala. This is the male. Another which is previously conspecific with the Pompadour green pigeon. This is a male. Female, they're dimorphic. The female is much paler in color. This is Sri Lanka hanging parrot, probably one of our cutest birds. I had a find to myself in my garden several years ago. I would say probably about a decade ago. As I said, I'm pretty lazy to write about things, but you know, considering the number of birds, you know, we don't see, you know, then that many burrows, and most of the tree holes have been, you know, dropped by other birds, and so I always wondered as to why how can these numbers be so high with so much of burrows, less burrows. And to my surprise, just by the side of my house, you know, there was this fishtail palm tree, and it was nesting in the crevice of the branch and the trunk. So that was a very interesting find, and the picture on the right was, I took a photograph with a primitive scope and a primitive camera. This is also a lovely bird, the Layard's parakeet, and this is the male. The female is a little more drab, and it's almost like the Malabar parakeet, but much short tail. Calls are, I mean, similar, but I mean, if you listen to them, they quite a difference in their calls. Okay, this is one of our iconic birds, which is the red-faced Malkoha. This is the male. The female's got a white eye. Very, very pretty bird. It's actually it's confined. Most of the sightings are in the wet zone in places like Singaraja, but I mean on good gallery forest or riverine vegetation, in heavy forest, you know, in towards the northeast, northeast of the hill massif, you can have a couple of sightings. And I think about 15-20 years ago there was a couple of birds which is found in Yala as well. That's an interesting bird, and one interesting thing is that in Singaraja you can see these birds in flocks, and that's when you find these mixed feeding flocks, it's much easier to get at these birds. So you have quite a number of birds feeding together, and there's lots of papers written about that. I mean, it's a phenomenon which is documented from all over the world, and especially in the tropics. This is another interesting bird, the green-billed cuckoo. Couldn't remember exactly, but when the first nest was found in Singaraja, I was called by a friend to go and have a look at it. I had a primitive camera, and this was just below Martin's Lodge in Singaraja, and Martin had written about its behavior, nesting behavior, and Gehan Vijayaratna, I think he translated it, and it was published in, I think, Folktale many years ago. And my friend, one of my friends called me to go, and I said, no, I got something busy because my son was pretty small, and then, you know, at that time of, you know, you cannot leave home, you know, you got restrictions and stuff like that. And he said, well, Lester, you know, you got to sacrifice things in order to, you know, benefit from this kind of thing, you know, behavioral aspects, you know, behavioral phenomena. And that was a very interesting thing. And we saw the fecal matter being carried away from the nest, which was very interesting. Since then, there have been many nests being recorded, that kind of thing. So it's once again one of those nightmare birds. You know, you can easily miss the bird. You know, and the best places to see it is in Kitulgala and Singaraja. There are other locations where you can see, but you know, but on a typical itinerary, you know, you skip those places. So, but I mean, if you give enough time for Singaraja, you can see most of these birds. I will go. Oh, this is once again the good photographs of the Serendip scops. So, fortunately, unfortunately, many birders try to approach the birds too close. But you know, good photographers use good lenses and try to take pictures from a distance. And on the right is a digiscope picture by me, and that's the way I think the best way to see the bird from a distance and photograph the bird from a distance and without disturbing the bird's roost, because it's a very unique and very important bird. I would say one of our flagship species. It's very interesting because when it was named by Deepal and Pamela Rasmussen in their paper, they mentioned they put it in the genus Otus. And over the years, you know, when you look at, you know, pictures of the genus Otus, all the Otus and Mega Otus and all those genuses used, this is quite different. And Deepal and myself, we discussed this, and in the new checklist, to the illustrated checklist, Nigel Collar mentions the fact that this would be eventually end up in a genus of its own. Well, this is chestnut-backed owlet, and this was found specific with jungle owlet, and later on elevated to species status. sometimes if you see the subspecies Malabaricum, which has a tone a little lighter than this chestnut color. This is the also the chestnut backed owlet can easily be seen in Kitulgala and Singaraj as well, and it's not in the deep forest but in the fringe. You know, the fringe effect helps lots of bird species because the diversity is much greater, so it's easy to see, and the call is the best way to locate it. This is a pretty common bird in the wet zone, the yellow-fronted barbet, another endemic. I'm emphasizing the fact mainly on the endemics because that's where lots of birders try to hit upon, get the endemics and the subcontinental endemics as well. This is another one which is thought to be conspecific with Malabar Barbed. And when I saw the literature, when I saw this bird, I knew when I saw the Malabar Barbed, I knew that it was pretty different, distinct, and ours had to get elevated. But when the elevation happened, there was major uproar by many birders, as to why it should be, and so on and so forth. This is the Sri Lanka Greyhound bill. It's dimorphic, and this is the male. The female has got a slightly shorter bill, but more darker bill. And this is a very recent pick, I think a couple of years ago. Deepal did the monumental work on it, and then this is a female. You see the forehead, it's darker with white spotting, and this was both subspecies. The northern subspecies is very similar to the South Indian black rump flameback or the lesser flameback now, and this was elevated, and this subspecies was elevated, and the northern one, Jaffens, is also endemic to Sri Lanka. So this was elevated species, that is remains as a subspecies, the northern one. This is the greater flameback previously, now the crimson backed flameback. It's very easy to distinguish the two species from the bill color. It's a larger bird. It's got a whiter throat than the red-backed flameback. This is once again one of our iconic birds. I mean, probably one of the most photographed birds of Sri Lanka, and it's a COVID, all right. I saw this bird mobbing and it killed a fledgling greenbill cuckoo fledgling about, I think, 25 years ago in Singaraj. I tried to chase it away, but they went off and then came and eventually killed it. Very interesting bird. It's not difficult to see it in Singaraj. It's found in Horton Plains, in the hills, mid-hills, and many other places, but it's strictly in the wet zone, mid-hills. Yeah, this is another split which happened, I think DP Vijay Singh did this elevation from the red-rumped swallow. This is now the Sri Lanka swallow. I'm not going to go into detail, but this is a very common species throughout the island, most parts of the island. Well, this is the crested drongo, and there's a new interesting study done on its nesting behavior, which is on YouTube and Facebook, which is very interesting. A couple of papers written about it, and they are in the feeding flocks and found in Singaraj and the wet zone forests, and previously thought to be conspecific with the greater racket-tailed drongo, and then remained as a subspecies. And the greater racket-tailed drongo is found in the dry zone and strictly in the dry zone heavy forests, and that subspecies is also endemic to Sri Lanka, which is interesting. and it's very difficult to see the racket-tailed drongo in Sri Lanka. It's very shy, unlike in South India when you can see hordes of them. Well, this is another interesting bird. When I saw when this was elevated, there was a major uproar saying, "Oh my God, how can these birds get elevated?" And because there was quite a number of birds elevated to species status, and when I did see the birds in South India, the flame-throated, there was there was no doubt because the eye color and the throat and was distinct. The vocalization was very different. Well, this is also very interesting song, very similar to the South Indian puff-throated babbler. I mean, puff-throated babbler goes up to the Himalayas as well, the lower Himalayas, but these songs are very similar. They respond. These birds respond to the Himalayan or the South Indian puff-throated babbler call, and there were 3 subspecies based on the color of the cap, and but now it's dropped to 2 subspecies. This was also recently, I think, Pamela Rasmussen split this from the South Indian one, Oswildy, and very different morphometrics are different from the South Indian one. This is the Sri Lanka babbler, the orange bill babbler. Best place, it's a strictly wet zone bird and not difficult. You can see, I mean, in a feeding flock, it's a nuclear species, so you can see massive numbers. I don't think in the recent past I've seen great numbers, but I remember 15, 20 years ago, or on a couple of occasions, I've seen up to about 60 birds in a flock, which is phenomenal. I think I've seen it a couple of times, but not many times. This is one of those relic species, the garrulats, the ashy-headed laughing thrush. Another interesting species. Once again, it's probably the only place you can really have good views is in Singaraj. There are other places on a itinerary you cannot go to those places, but Singaraj is the most accessible and the best place to see this species. Very interesting bird, and sometimes you get them in the flock, sometimes they feed alone. Very interesting. This is also the Sri Lanka hill myna, strictly in the mid zone, and this is also dimorphic. This is the male. Female's got a paler eye, and the people refer to them as wattles, and I would rather refer to them as lappets, because the wattles are more hanging from the bill bases, or from the bill bases rather from the facial area. Good example is the lappet face vulture. This is also another bird which you can only see in a few places, and they're very, very difficult, and you will find a few in a flock, but late in the evenings and early in the mornings you will see them flying to the feeding areas, and they would roost on bare trees for a while and they fly away. So that's the best way and to see it, mornings and evenings. Once again, in the wet zone. This is also this is the spot-winged thrush. I'm pretty sort of perplexed by this new genus it's been placed in, Geochicla. I mean, if you look at the structure of this and the other species in that genus, the pied thrush, which migrates from the Himalayas to Sri Lanka, it's very, very different, and it's different from, I would say, it's more close. But I think Per Alstom and Urban Olsen's doing a lot of work on the thrushes. Some work has been done on it. Very interesting where it will be placed in the future. This is also quite not so difficult bird, but strictly in the wet zone. The legs flower pecker. Vincent did probably the best monumental work on Sri Lankan birds. I'll get towards the end. I'll elaborate on some of a little bit on leg. So now we go into the Highlands, where which is a very interesting area, beautiful country. I mean, forest, mountain, cloud forests, and that's where you can see these the easier place to see the Sri Lanka wood pigeon, which is similar to the Nilgiri wood pigeon. I remember going down to somewhere in Kunur to Lamb's Rock, and I found the Nilgiri wood pigeon. I did a backpacking birding trip. This was in 2001. This species, they come to lower elevations and they loiter in the wet zone a bit depending on the fruiting time. This is another interesting species. I think there was a write-up in Birding Asia recently. As usual, Nigel Collar writes has done some very good work, and I think this probably go to a new genus of its own. I mean, anyone looking good birders, I mean, experienced birders, field birders, or citizen scientists who are, I mean, the new norm or term use would definitely see the difference. And I don't think it will remain in Pycnonotus for a long time. This is another interesting bird. Some can be a nightmare bird but I mean, all these birds are, I wouldn't say, easy. The commonest bird can be difficult sometimes. So it's all to do with the weather conditions and things like that. But if you search and if you know the call of the bird, it's not too difficult to find the bird. I mean, it's around Horton Plains and the higher hills. It doesn't come down. Same with the Blight whistling thrush. This is the smallest of the whistling thrushes. Very interesting, dimorphic. Same with the picture previously, the Sri Lanka warbler. Interesting. I could mention that it was in Epornis and then taken, and I think Phillips put it into Bradipterus, and then Rasmussen put it back in. Put it in Epornis. It's in a genus of its own. Very interesting. This is the female is yellowy, has a yellow eye, and this is the male. This is the Blight whistling thrush. Again, very interesting. It's got a fantastic, very beautiful song. The threat call or the contact call is a harsh call, but the songs are really beautiful. Very similar to someone would think that it's a sub song of the bird. It's dimorphic. The females, it's brown. It's got the carpal patches blue. This is somewhat like the Nilgiri flycatcher. This is a Sri Lanka dull blue flycatcher. If it's nesting, it's very silent, but right time of the day, it's singing. But they're not too difficult to see in Horton Plains. This is a Sri Lanka White Tie. A couple of papers written by Sampath Segaratne recently. Dr. Sampath Segaratne has it's nice article, nice paper written, and this is basically in the hills, but you can find small numbers in the lower hills. We get down to the lowlands, and this is the Sri Lanka wood strike, and once again Rasmussen split it. If I'm correct, I may be wrong in certain instances, but that's how my memory works. Rasmussen split it, and from the common wood strike, and the Malabar wood shrike was elevated there, and this is the Sri Lanka wood shrike. You can see it in the intermediate areas in the wet zone as well. Some made in the, basically a lowland species. So this bird is very easy to see. Diala, Udawalawa, Sigiriya, and most in the lowlands. Very very easy to see. Quite common bird. This is an endemic subspecies. Very interesting. So I mentioned I put these two tables going up to about 30 species, but some of these will certainly get elevated. It's interesting with the work happening right now on taxonomic work is interesting. It's interesting because it's going to be difficult for amateurs. I mean, field birders such as us who are not very well versed with the DNA terminology and I mean the whole thing about DNA work done. We're not. So it's going to be difficult, once a species is elevated and paper is done. Sometimes it's so difficult to understand the terminology as well. So this is the brown wood owl. Got all these are endemic subspecies. Interesting. The dollar bird is different from the Indian subspecies. Irisy is it is named after a lady called Iris Danton, and it goes as Irisy. The paper was written by P.P. Derniagar. So, but the barbine flycatcher, Ligai, maybe it will get elevated. We don't know. But when it comes to the paradise flycatcher, I doubt it whether it will get elevated. So, because the hybridization of subspecies is now getting a fair share of eyes on it. So we'll wait and see how things happen in the future. It's going to be very interesting. These are the yellow-browed bulbuls. It's also another endemic subspecies. The white bush chat found once again in the hills. The yellow-browed is found in the from the high. I wouldn't say the high hills, lower hills to the intermediate zone, even in the good heavy forested areas. You can see it. This is the higher. We got two subspecies of the Zitting cisticola, and both are endemic to Sri Lanka. It's very interesting, pretty bird. And the one, once again, on the right hand side is the red-vented bulbul, very, very common garden bird. This subspecies of the Zitting cisticola is both are endemic. This is from the hills and from Horton Plains. Yeah, there's a brown cap Dendrocarpus nanus, and then you on the right hand side, lower right, you have the yellow-billed babblers, and that is a possibility to get elevated. There was opinions on it, but somehow it was not. I mean, if you come towards lower hills, I mean towards in Tamil Nadu, those birds are distinctly different. They got white cap, and that's why I think it's Salim Ali mentions it as if I'm right, the white cap babble. I'm going on to show you something which is very, very interesting. Lockdown brings so much of good things. I think lockdown is a really good thing which happened. We have learned a lot from the lockdown, and this is something which happened in my garden. And you will hear my chickens calling. I mean, good friends know how fanatical I'm about my chickens, which I've been studying for a long time. I'm breeding colors, and so Here's a oh, that was pretty interesting. This is something I think I'll have to write because this is a brand new phenomenon which is never recorded before, to my knowledge. Probably someone else has, but I've gone through done the research on into the literature, but I didn't come across anything written about this. You know, this is like something like anting. They anoint themselves with this is a baby rat snake. They eventually kill the bird and they anointed themselves with the secretions which they daubed themselves in, the rat snakes. So the fact is that the papers, what they say is this anting or anointing thing, which I've seen in a few birds. We think it's like, you know, trying to get rid of the ectoparasites, but in fact it's still misunderstood up to now. This is totally new, you know, where a snake is being mobbed and killed by these babblers, and they do this anointing thing, which is very, very interesting. I think I'll eventually have to write about it. Interestingly, the common myna which was there is also this one, and the common myna, both are endemic subspecies. Another interesting subspecies is the Sri Lanka Greyhound. Slight differences with the calls. I don't know whether it can get elevated or be as a subspecies. Uh, the Indian black robin. Oh, I mean, if you look at the North Indian birds and the Sri Lankan birds, they're worlds apart. So that's another interesting species. These are two contentious species for endemicity. It comes into the list and goes out. It's very interesting. And to me, I mean, the black-throated monia here is definitely, it has to get elevated. It's distinctly different. I've seen loads of the bird in South India. The one on the right, of course, is the Sri Lanka thrush, which is now lumped as the white thrush. We'll have to wait and see. I don't want to make any comments, but I think there's a lot of work being done on the thrushes at the moment. I don't know whether papers are being published, but I've not come across. But I think the as a citizen scientist, I don't have the opportunity to have all the literature, and I think the people involved may know. But I was told that this may get elevated again. Same with the Nilgiri thrush and the Scaly thrush complex. This was a couple of interesting features. I mean, throughout my years, I had many interesting twitches, but this was in the several years ago, couple of years ago, I would say, and I heard of this bird, and I was leading a tour, and I went to the area where the bird was seen, and the rufous-tailed thrush, rock thrush, also known as a common rock thrush, and I saw. I mean, I spent about. This was just after lunch. My clients had had lunch and they went to the rooms. I spent about 1.5 hours at the top of this hotel waiting for the bird, and eventually, I mean, I stayed for a long time until it came, and I was quite disappointed that then sort of, was in bliss after seeing the bird. I think this was in 2018, or I think 19. I'm pretty bad with dates. When Deepal called me and asked me whether I would join him to go on a twitch to the south to Boondala, I would say my second home in the south, and that there was a single Asian dowitcher, and we did go, and then within minutes we were told the exact sites. We went there, and within minutes there we found the second bird, which we were able to see the second bird. And the first dowitcher I saw was in 2003, once again in Boondala, in a different location. So this was my second sight, and it was exhilarating. It's a super bird. Another eureka moment was, I had many eureka moments, but the Oriental scops owl, once again, this subspecies is an endemic legi, and this was a rufous morph, and this was perched, just below eye level, and I had a Minolta SRT101 or something like that, and I took a few photographs. One of the photographs, Gihan, this is published in his book. That is very, very interesting. I still enjoy that moment. And at that time, I think this was the second or third photograph taken of it in the wild. I think T.S. De Silva, another, I godfather bird photograph in Sri Lanka, had taken several photographs of it. Another bird was the European roller. Oh, it was a real nightmare, and I chased it on several occasions. This was like the fourth record, and this was on the drive to Yarleview. I was driving with 2 clients, and then I saw this bird. I knew it was distinctly different. Bang! I asked the driver to stop, got off, and this was the first the photograph. I didn't want to crop it. I just left to give the feel of it anyhow. This is another interesting find. This photograph was taken later on. I think this was in 2014. But this is the land bridge which connects the sandbars which connects India and Sri Lanka, the Adams Bridge. This is the second island. A client of mine wanted to see. He had finished the tour with me and then wanted to see the crab flower. And he asked me as to how many days it would take, which is, I said, well, it will take, drive would take about a day's time, and spend another day, and maybe another day to get back. And he had this streptococcal infection. He had a long before, and basically he couldn't walk. I still remember, fantastic bird, Gordon Ridley, a Scottish bird. And so we went to Mannar. We booked into so I spoke to my manager and he said, okay, this is the cost for the tour and you can proceed. So I told Gordon about it and Gordon said, okay, no problem, let's go. Once the tour is over, we drive straight to Mannar. So we drove to Mannar and then went to Adams, went up there and took the boat, hired a boat and went into the islands, and I saw the bridal terns nesting here. Here, you find the greater and the greater crested terns, and I'll show you. This was also in 2014 when I approached the bird. It was not shy at all. I mean, it took a long time and it got close to it. I had a very primitive bridge camera, but I got a good shot. It's memorable because this was after 2000. I did many visits in 2003, and then eventually in 2014, after the war was over, I went up there and then got lots of photographs. And I did also find apart from the bridal tern nesting, I also did find the Saunders tern and common tern nesting there as well in Adams, which lately they have found the brown noddy nesting as well. Very, very interesting location, beautiful area. But now I think there's the going there is somewhat restricted. So it's good for the birds because when I found it at that time, 2003, fishermen used to go to these islands and collect eggs. And the other known site for the large crested terns and also these are the roseate terns, which in 2014, I think 2012 or 13, I couldn't remember, as I said, I'm very poor with dates and things like that. But some of our friends found the roseate terns nesting in these islands, and they also found the sooty terns nesting. So that was another good find. So there are quite a number of good terns nesting there. The roseates, the common, bridled, the sooties, large crested, Saunders, little terns. So interesting. So I after leaving school in 1986, I did a job for a couple of months, and then eventually I was told that there was a vacancy in the National Aquatic Resources Agency, and I joined it and did work on marine mammals. But my main focus was, my job focus was on turtle nesting behavior. So from that time onwards, I had an inclination towards pelagic birds, which I think at present, I think we should give a lot of emphasis on. So one of my colleagues at NARA, who's a very good friend, I managed to get funding for this project. So it was a cetacean and pelagic bird survey, diversity survey. And we got funding from the Ocean Park Conservation Foundation of Hong Kong. And this was a zigzag transect, 2 zigzag transects done in Berual and Mirissa, and these are the site-specific counts. Though it goes down in May, actually, we found there was a phenomenal finds. We found white-faced storm petrel. There were a couple of sightings of Joannin's petrel. Couple of, I think, a year earlier or 2 years earlier to that, Udita found a black-bellied storm petrel. During our study, we found that after finding the nesting of the bridal tern, we found that these birds, the bridal tern is probably that we found it was the most common pelagic bird, and they are in our waters throughout the year. So then later on, I went into a discussion with Anuk about its abundance in Sri Lanka, and Anuk later on said that there are a couple of, I think, one thermal dome. I think it was the Indian Navy which found that there was another major thermal dome in the Andaman Sea. So probably most of the our cetaceans, the blue whales and these bridal terns and lots of birds are congregating depending on the abundance of food there because of the upwellings in a thermal dome. And another thing is that somehow for some reason we found there was more diversity towards Beruala than Mirissa, although the continental shelf is closer to Mirissa. But interestingly, we found in Mirissa, I think we found more during our survey. We found which was formerly thought to be a vagrant, which is the Swinhoe's storm petrel, and this is the paper which is published in Folktale 32. That's the study, and this is a raft of Wilson storm petrels. I think there are a couple of Swinhoe storm petrels, and this I think this is the least known group of birds, and so much work needs to be done on this group of birds. Here you find the common terns and bridal terns, one little tern, I think. This is that same raft, and this is Joannin's petrel. These pictures are taken by Gary Allport, a fantastic birder. I've not met him, but happened to chat on Facebook. He's taken some fantastic shots of this Joannin's petrel. Great bird, and it's so important, and we got all the tools at present, to work on these pelagics. It's so difficult, to identify these birds, and some birds, that's, I'm sure, there's no barriers for seabirds, and I'm quite certain that the diversity is much greater than what we know. It's amazing, amazing to work out at sea, because it's not only the bird, but this is bridal tern flight, and this is a flesh-footed shearwater, wedge-tail shearwater. We on the trip. On this trip where we saw the wedge-tail shearwater, I had another lifer for myself, which we had about 6 or 7 long-tailed skuas as well. So they're South Polar skuas, brown skuas, Pomeranian skuas, more actually brown. I'm wondering whether it's brown. It's very difficult, So these are just visual identification, but we really need a lot of photographs to get to some sort of fundamental basis on our seabird diversity. So we need more work, but the fact remains that the cost for work, pelagic work, is very expensive. It's so this was, I think, much later than 2009, where I plotted the Swinostorm petrel numbers. And I think there's another paper written about its migration passing south to Singapore. So these birds are migrating, the passage migrant. I think I mentioned to you earlier that it was considered to be a vagrant, but it is not a vagrant anymore. It's quite a common passage migrant. We counted, I think, over 70 or over 100 birds in a couple of days. And the migration happens, the northerly migration happens around between September, October. And we have not been able to go out to see for obvious reasons during April, May. And the fact also remains that that is the time when there's, like from September, October, when the seas are choppy, the sea conditions can be Beaufort 1, 2, going in a small boat in Beaufort 1 or 2 is a virtual nightmare. So I can elaborate a lot on that, and that's certainly a migration which, as I said, I'm pretty lazy in writing, but this is something I've written a little bit, but I have sufficient data, but I also think it's not good enough. I like to have more data, but just to say that there's a definite migration. Vincent Legg, as an artist, I just need to give credit to all bird artists who's done monumental work for ornithology, and hardly has any good artist been recognized. Kuhlemans did a lot of work for Legg's book. He did on Indian birds as well. He was a Dutch, John Gerard Kuhleman. He worked in the British Museum. Interesting, I found this Catherine Donahue, who birded with me in Andaman Islands. She spoke to me that she got the director of the museum she worked for to purchase the original manuscript, the lithographs, and then she later on compared the original lithographs and found that it was different from the original document, the published document. And then she had apparently contacted Legg's son, I think, and then his son had confirmed and said that this is not his work. And I just put only 2 pictures here just to give you a comparison. But when I looked through all these pictures, and Catherine herself had gone through it, and there is a very feminine femininity in the paintings, and there was someone else who did the work, on the left for Legg, and Legg sent these illustrations along with the skins to Kuhleman, where Kuhleman painted the works on the right hand side. It's the same thing with Gould. Everyone talks a lot about Gould, but Gould was not an artist. And I don't know. I basically know that Mrs. Gould's sunbird is a bird which is given credit, which gives credit to Elizabeth Cox, who was John Gould's wife. Actually, she did, and Edward Lear did a lot of work for Gould and many others. So I don't know any artists who have been really given credit with regards to the early ornithological works. I mean, those documents really sold because of the artistry in it. This is on the left is in the center is G.M. Henry, and I met Bruce Henley when he was in Sri Lanka, and of course David was probably better than the father, and David apparently used to go as a kid to meet George C. Lodge, who was a falconer and a fantastic bird painter, And the one is a mock-up of a monal which Henry had done to do a painting. So Gihan Vijayaratna helped me to get some paintings by G.M. Henry, and I got the book autographed by Bruce. And David did another book, and I have that book as well. And Bruce wrote a little thing in that as well. So I'm very, very happy. I got about, with the help of Gyan, I got about 15, 20, field sketches of birds by G.M. Henry. I mean, that's like, very, very dear to me in my collection, apart from my books. This is another interesting thing. I'm not going to, the time has caught up, and this is when I went to see the I think I mentioned that when we searched for the spoonbill sandpiper in Mena, I searched the north for the cochineal bug, but while looking for the spoonbill sandpiper, I saw this little bit of white, and then took it to my hand, fingers, and between my fingers pinched, and it was red color. This red color is the carmine dye, probably one of the most expensive natural dyes, and the Mayas and the Incas used it for their coloring. And we have, it's a real pest. It's really constricting the vegetation in the south. So this is me cutting 2018. Actually, the spoonbill sandpiper did come there in 2018 in June. So this is almost 1 month after. I just took my little car up to Mena, and then on the right hand side is the destruction and the eating of the prickly pear cactus, and it's probably one of the greatest achievements in my life. And this is what it's done, and it's helping the regeneration of the forests in the south. And this is almost one year after the introduction of the cochineal bug. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you won't ask any questions which will send me in orbit. So thank you very much for listening. I must thank my friends for helping me with the technical issues. I'm more or less a Flintstone, so my friends Roshan and Lakshit, Roshan and Atula helped me with this setting up of this presentation. So thank you. Over to you, David.
Thank you so much, Lester. What a fantastic presentation. It's so great to hear all these birds. I've never been to Sri Lanka, so I think I have to make a trip soon.
Thanks. I invited you a couple of times. You were about to come.
I know. Yeah, so it's so happy to see a lot of species which is very similar, like our South Indian species also.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, can you quickly go through the some questions there, so if you can answer?
Yeah, this is on more, right? You go to the...
Yes.
Open your name.
Or do you want me to read out the questions?
Yeah, it's not opening up for some reason. Just hold on.
Okay. Yeah, there's a question from Gayatri Tisra.
Yeah.
I have working around Galoya and Yala. Now I am at Singaraja Rainforest. I want to know how can I find Sri Lankan spurfowl, because I have seen all endemic, but I can't understand why can't I find it.
Yeah, it's a difficult bird. It's been very easy to see it. But if you go to there is just in the fringes of the reserve, you go to if she can go to a place called Ketalapattala, or once she gets on the way up towards the gate, the real entrance to the reserve, there is a guy who's building up a small sort of set up a couple of lodges there. I think it's under construction, and he feeds the birds, the spurfowl there. That's one of the places to see. Or else the other best place is to go out. The trackers there know the location, so if obviously she has to go with the tracker, so that's compulsory. So she can ask the trackers, and maybe they will help her out. Okay.
Okay, there's a question from Dr. Malathi. Like,
Yeah.
why, in your opinion, did the flamingo population disappear from Bundala?
Well, what it's very interesting. What happened was in the mid 80s. I mean, early 80s and before that. I mean, if you're traveling by bus, I mean, that's the mode of transport had when I was working for Nara, and even as a schoolboy when I used to go to Bundala birding. I mean, by bus you can see the sand dunes on the coast. Now you cannot see any of it because of the prosopis, which is another invasive plant. It's a real scourge. I know India has taken action in certain places, but here we are taking it, but it's virtually impossible. That's just one small note. But the fact is that in the 80s, mid 80s, the then regime, had this massive, because it's a very dry area of the country, the area, and they want to irrigate the rice paddies, and they had this massive Lunugambhera reservoir built, dam built for the reservoir, and the offlow from after it feeds the rice paddies just falls into the Bundala ecosystem. So it changed the constitution of the water. It was salt water, brackish water, and it became fresh water. It changed the whole thing. It's no more what Bundala was. You could count. I would count up to 3,000, 3,500 flamingos. I've notes from that time, from '86, and I've seen them mating. I have photographs. I wrote a small note on the nesting, nest building of flamingos in Bundala. I have photographs of that. I wish I had time to put it out here. But so it changed the whole constitution. I mean, in 2003, when when the changes was, I would say 25, 30%. I remember counting up to about 30, 40,000 duck. There was about 25,000 gargany and massive numbers of pintail. You don't see that anymore. You don't. There were thousands and thousands of waders. You don't see those anymore. So the whole thing has changed. So the only way is them to divert the water towards the river system, which flows further northwards. So I don't know. It never seems to happen. And
Okay.
then.
Yes, a lot of people are thanking you. It's a fantastic session. I'm just taking only the relevant questions.
Yes.
What about different crows in Sri Lanka? Is it the same species found in India, or are there any different species?
Yes, it is the same species. Yes.
Okay.
It's the same species. But I think the ones which I mean, the same species, I would say the same subspecies as well. But I think the ones which I see around in Tamil Nadu, somehow got real grayish necks, very distinctly grayish necks. I don't know whether it's I don't know. I cannot say whether it's a subspecies because I cannot remember really.
There's a question from Gaya Kandaswamy. Very informative. Thank you. Can you please explain about the pelagic bird counting by boats and zigzag transect? How far you went from the coast to find pelagic seabirds?
I wish I knew something, but we were out about between about I think we were basically we hugged the coast, the shelf edge. That is where the upwellings are. So I think for the south, the shellfish edge is closer to the shore, and that's why you see lots of blue whales and Rudess whales and even killer whales. So so we were hugging the shelf edge. At times we were about 7-8 kilometers. At times we were about 15-20 kilometers out at sea. That's what I remember.
Okay. Somebody saying, I think Som CG, I and my friends were lucky to see a greater flamingo in flight at Yala Park, block number 1 near sea over brackish lake.
Yes, it's very interesting. You get every now and then you get a few birds coming towards Bundala, and that whole system of brackish lakes really good habitat for birds. But because of the Bundala system has changed, you know, and another fact is that the salt lakes in the south, further south towards Hambantota, all those lakes have been developed for salt mining. So it's population explosion and, you know, development and habitat loss. There's a whole area of things happening. It's a very sad story.
Okay. A lot of people are saying thank you, and then one more question from Gaya. Can you explain which migrant species started breeding in Sri Lanka? Is there any migrant species started breeding in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, recently, after many, I think over 100 years, they found the glossy ibis breeding in Bundala. They also, several years ago, I think the slate-legged crake was found to be breeding, but I think we knew that there was a population. I can't not exactly pinpoint and say, but there are a few birds which they discovered breeding, and especially the common coot was discovered breeding. Then yeah, it's coming to my mind. The spot-billed duck was discovered. Then the bulbous whistling duck was discovered a couple of years ago from Manevilunda, north of Nigambo. So every now and then, you know, yeah. See this question. According to Birds of Sri Lanka by John Harrison, the hanging parrot is shown to have body flanks of a green color with a red crown. I once sighted an individual pair having a bright yellow body with bright red crown. So, do you think this could be example of a rare morph or otherwise? It all also depends on the light. You know, the angle you're viewing the bird can give a different color. That's one thing. And then these aberrations, individuals can have different colors every now and then. So that's the only explanation I can give. But I mean, that overall, you can see that it's got quite a nice yellow to it. You know, it's not really green as Greeny mentioned, but the belly area is yeah, that's it.
There's an interesting question from Dilip. What is the status of vulture population in Sri Lanka?
No, we don't have vultures here. I think there's one record of the Egyptian vulture in Sri Lanka. So probably I never heard of any vultures. I enjoy being in North India, seeing the vultures, but you know.
Yeah, one question.
Yeah.
Can you say something about the rising population of grey hornbills in urban areas of Sri Lanka? Is there a rising population?
There are so many bird populations. The numbers increasing. Enormous numbers of Alexandrine parakeets. Enormous numbers. Increase of numbers of the green imperial pigeon. I can go on and on. You know, there's so many species which are increasing. The woodpeckers are increasing. The Asian quail is increasing in large numbers because probably the numbers of crows have increased, and that's very interesting. So and the breeding season, they sing off the known season now, you know. So there's a lot of numbers have increased, as well as, you know, it's it's affecting some of the other birds as well. Robbing of nests is a problem. So crow numbers are increasing, they're predating on nests. So all these phenomena are happening, but you know, I'm not a scientist, and I think it's up to the people who are doing behavioral sciences and, you know, population studies to work on those, which is very, very important, because there is a Asian waterfowl census happening every year. I mean, this has to happen with forest birds as well. You know, it's very, very important that population studies are done.
Okay. There's a question from Facebook Live. Right time for birding in Sri Lanka from Ram. Any specific place you recommended? What is the
Uh,
best time to bird?
the time can be between from November up to March is the best time, because then almost all the migrants have arrived. But you cannot. I mean, you'll have to uh, cover as many habitats as possible to see the maximum number of species. But if someone is concentrating on the endemic species, then the places I mentioned, such as Singaraja, Kitulgala, and Horton Plains are the places to cover. But I mean, if you do go to the south, then Bundala, Yala, Udawalawa, and important places. And also Galway National Park, as I mentioned initially, is also a very important area for the painted francolin and the jungle bush quail, also the yellow-legged green pigeon. That's the only area you can really see it. And you spend a little time, maybe 2-3 days, and you're guaranteed of seeing it if you go to the right location. Yes. Yeah. I hope I have.
Most of the questions have been covered. So do you want to add anything to the new generation which coming up with the birding in Sri Lanka, and any message to them?
Well, one of the more interesting talks I heard in the recent past is Ashish Pitti's talk, on really sitting down, studying your birds, taking notes. It was a fantastic talk. It took me to the past. Today, if someone wants to learn about birds, I mean, there are tons of birds. When I was a kid, when I really wanted to learn about birds, it's a basic nightmare. So I had to take notes, and I have notes from about 20, 30 years, or 30, yeah, from around 1979. I would say I was working at the zoo on a voluntary basis. But that's what I would recommend, not a camera, but take your notebook, listen to the calls. Calls are very, very important. And I think the smartphones can give good recordings. So you can record calls, study calls, compare calls. Look at the common birds all the time, most of the time. And then you get familiar with the common birds, and then you see the anomalies of a different bird, and then bang, you know what there is that you find the different bird, and then you have note down those aspects which are unfamiliar to you, and then you can refer to the guidebooks. And I would recommend, don't take your guidebooks to the field. Take your notebooks, pen and pencil, binoculars, and that's the way to get about with it. And then you see so much more than using a camera and taking photographs and things like that. I would recommend anyone to go check out on go through Ashish Pitti's talk, and then you learn the basics.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. These days, there's not much birding happening. It's all about bird photography and just.
Exactly. It's very sad because uh, everyone's trying to get the best shot, and there's so many photographers crashing through the jungles, destroying quite a bit. It's a sad story. I mean, it's difficult. It's helped to popularize birding and nature watching and all that. It's good. It's not a bad thing. There's a lot of positivities in it. Just like Bikram Grewal also mentioned in his talk about it. So I would, I mean, for a beginner, obviously a beginner needn't take, big cameras to study birds. I mean, that's not the way to study birds. I think the notepad is the best way to study birds. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Thank you so much, Lester. It
Thanks.
was fantastic to hear you. I
Thanks,
mean,
David.
on behalf of both the Nature Society and Alappuzha Naturalist Society, we extend our thanks on those who are attended. Thank you, all of you, those who are attended, and good night. Stay safe.
Good night. I'm humbled by the invite and being able to talk
Yeah,
to you.
pleasure,
Thank you
pleasure.
so much. Yes.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
David.